welcome to section 1 of unit 3 of international procurement. Today we'll be looking at introduction to international procurement process. By the end of this section, you should be able to understand and justify why international procurement is a process, explain the 3 P's of procurement management process, indicate the factors influencing the choice of an international procurement process, and illustrate the international procurement process. So why international procurement process? So just as firms are procuring for products internationally as a result of their inability to find a supplier locally or their choice of having a wider market, international procurement ensures that all possible resources are obtained by firms regardless of where they are located. So procurement describes the activities involved in obtaining goods and services. As we mentioned earlier, that procurement involves the acquisition of goods, works, and services by an organization, be it from a third party or in-house. So we are seeing that procuring products internationally offers the firm the chance to procure from different parts of the world. That's offering the firm to choose the best product in satisfying its needs. So that's like a wider market in which firms may choose from. So whether procuring products locally or internationally, it requires firms to undergo some systematic processes. So there are processes firms undergo to make these purchases, even locally or internationally. So international procurement process becomes very vigorous than the domestic procurement process as a result of issues and challenges associated with international procurement. So even though there's a local procurement process, but then the international one or the international procurement process is a very rigorous one due to some challenges that are associated with the international procurement. So regardless of the uniqueness of the procurement or whether local or abroad, every procurement management process consists of 3 P's. So here we look at the 3 P's of procurement management process. So that's the process, the people, and the paperwork. So for the process, it refers to the rules that needs to be followed by firms in their procurement process, including the need identification, the requirements of specification, ordering, receiving, and payment for the product. So this is what we term as the process. So sort of rules that organizations may need to follow in order for the procurement to be fruitful. Okay, so this are the key checkouts for ensuring fairness, transparency, and avoiding confusion. So the process is a key checkout for ensuring fairness and then avoiding confusion as well as ensuring transparency. Then we look at the people. So the people also really that's the second P relates to the everyone involved in the procurement process, or basically you could put it the main stakeholders of the procurement process. So it specifies each stakeholder's responsibility in the process. So what are some of the responsibilities of the buyer, the seller or the supplier, then even with the buyer, the procurement officer, the stores manager, so all the stakeholders, the user department, or even the final consumer of the procuring process. Again, the higher the procurement risk, the higher the number of stakeholders directly involved in the process. So we see that in an international procurement, the higher the procurement risk, the higher we get a lot of people working in that um, regard or working towards that procurement process. Then we come to the final one of paper. So this refers to the paperwork and documentations involved in every stage of the procurement process. So this also include the receipts, communications, shipment documents, payment documents, and what have you that are kept for accountability and transparency. So we are saying we keep these paperwork for accountability. So the 3 P's considers the process, considers the people, and the paper. So the process for ensuring transparency and avoiding confusion, the people for involving the number of stakeholders in the procurement process, and the paperwork for accountability and documentations. So we look at some factors that influence the choice of an international procurement process. So what are some of the factors that you think may um, influence the choice of an international procurement process? So first one is the business strategy. So if your business strategy is to, let's say, have every quarter, I mean, have you purchase from an international market, you would have to use that business strategy would influence your factor of or your choice of adopting or using international procurement. The size of the organization, I mean, how large or small the organization may also be a factor to which an organization may want to use international procurement. Location, I mean, wherever that you may find yourself, it could be that there's higher um, labor, so you may want to go internationally for a little cheap manpower or cheap labor. Yes, so that can also affect your choice. And then the organizational structure. I mean, there are sometimes that the structure of the organization would insist on you going internationally, or the structure of the organization. I mean, is such that you cannot do without going international. And then we come to availability of procurement manager or officer. So if there's an availability of procurement manager, he or she may understand, I mean, better the need to go internationally, or the need to go in, um, yes, they need to go international for the process of goods, works, and services, or for the process of acquiring goods, works, and services. Again, the type of company or industry you may find yourself. I mean, if you are in the tech industry, you cannot say you want, I mean, consider the choice of an international procurement process. You always have to go back to that. When we come to the international procurement process, so typically international procurement processes are discussed, I mean, as discussed earlier, may refer to the steps companies may take to acquire the products, goods, and services that you may need from an overseas company or an overseas firm. But the procurement process will start from the minute the purchase request is placed. So the minute where you identify the need is where procurement process starts. However, different scholars have proposed different models and descriptions of the procurement process. So by dividing into a number of different stages. So I mean, even though we are seeing the procurement process starts right from the need identification stage, there are some scholars that have propounded some the procurement process by dividing them into different stages. So, for example, Ford 1980, Johnston and Lewin 1996, and Van Weel 2005 all have propounded different, I mean, models for procurement process. But we look at Van Weel's approach, for instance. So it specifies six distinct activities. Please take note of these ones: specification, supplier selection, contracting, ordering, expediting, and then follow-up evaluation. So in this model, there's this holistic view of combining every aspect of the procurement process into, I mean, this description of six boxes. So we look at the international procurement process. We are seeing that for the first one is procurement planning. So procurement planning is where you actually plan your entire procurement activity or what you are going to procure, where you have some form of planning by identifying the product in question, or by identifying the need. So we look at some form of needs being internal and external needs. So what the organization needs in itself, that comes into planning. Then we come to solicitation planning. So by solicitation planning is where we give some form of specifications to the item we need. Okay, we need chairs, but we need foamy chairs. We need chairs, but we need rotating, I mean, 360 rotation chairs. So that's the solicitation planning. Then after that, and then suppliers have been pre-qualified, then we come to the solicitation. By solicitation, we are seeing that this is where we would invite potential suppliers to send in their bids or send in their quotations. So under solicitation methods, that's where you may have invitation to bid or request for proposal, where suppliers are asked to send in their proposals for it to be um, assessed, and then they will then be continue for the contract. Again, then you move to source selection. So after you have invited them to send in their bids or proposals, then you select, or selection procedure comes in, where you select the sources or the suppliers that have performed. And then again, after deliberations, we come to contract administration. That's where, after you have sourced, um, or you have selected the source, or solicited, after you have selected the solicited suppliers, then you enter into the contract with them, have some form of contract administration, what goes into the contract management terms, and all that. And in the end, they will then move to the contract closure. Subsequently, we will be looking at this whole process in the subsequent sections. Thank you. So in this section, we looked at the international procurement process. In this section, we looked at why international procurement is a process. Again, we looked at the three P's of procurement management process, and then the factors influencing the choice of international procurement, and then the illustration of the international procurement process. Thank you.